Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. TNG Online Connect. So lots of friendly faces here today, but obviously the whole purpose is to bring TNG network across the region, across the country. Someone's getting a call, but that's okay. And the whole idea is obviously widen your network as well through the TNG networks, not just in your group, but nationwide as well. So you've got some awesome guest speakers. So today we have Malcolm Jensen, who's going to be telling us a little bit more about how we can actually manage uncertainty. So I'm sure you've always, as a business owner, there's things that you are constantly learning and don't know how to do. So when asked what Malcolm does, his answer is always simple. He says, I help business owners to be the best that they can be. And there's a truism that says if you continue to do what you've always done, then you will continue to get what you've always gotten. So if you don't change anything, then you can't really expect stuff to change or things to improve. So what he does is changing clients' lives by fixing those inadequate systems and processes or non-purposeful habits. So the things that need to go, he helps you clear them out. So with over 30 years of experience, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Malcolm can share with us today. So Malcolm, please take it away.
Oh, thank you, Dan, for that introduction. Yeah, look, hey, just a couple of things to open this up before I share the presentation. There is a bit of a traffic light theme. I just have to say that there's a completely different atmosphere from you Auckland people. You're positively chatty and positive, which is really good to hear. I guess that, you know, on the one hand, we kind of call you guys Jaffers, and you know, you live on the other side of the world and all those sorts of things. But the reality is, it's been a pretty hard road to hoe. So I think most people outside of Auckland do appreciate the work you've done. And yeah, as we all work our way through this traffic light system, red to green. Interesting enough, the presentation today, a little bit kind of from red to green. You know, what is our current reality? What does it look like for people in this environment? Then, hey, what can we do about it individually, if you like, in order to manage this this particular phase, if you like, economically and personally. So I'll just click this up now. Can everybody see? That's a yep, cool.
Yep.
So look, firstly, I need to acknowledge Maya in this. I work with this lady directly myself personally, and strongly suggest that you know, that people might consider doing that in terms of, you know, the kind of the soft fuzzy area of this. You know, I've personally found her very very useful in terms of doing that. So acknowledge Maya through this. She's aware, you know, this presentation which she actually prepared has been done with it. And while I thought about preparing my own one around how to manage uncertainty, this is far better presentation. So acknowledge her in that. The background to this today, and I think hopefully we should be through this probably in 20 minutes or so without too much direct involvement, although I will ask you, all you guys at one stage, a couple of questions, and would encourage you to stick the responses into the chat area if you're happy to do that. If not, all good. I'm not hosting this, but I'm more than happy for you to come back to me afterwards in terms of you know, where to go to from here if there's any particular issues. So the first screen, Vuca. Who's familiar with Vuca? It's a term originally coined by the US military, and from out of that, the OODA loop process come about, which was essentially how to, in the heat of battle, manage your response to somebody sitting on your tail in a jet about to shoot you down, sort of scenario. So the background to Vuca, if you like, come from the US military. Essentially, it stands for a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous current situation. And I think it would be fair to say that that all of us would appreciate that the current COVID environment and all the issues it's raised, creates volatility, certainly uncertainty, complexity. Obviously, it's a great opportunity for the bureaucrats to get involved and create lots of complexity here. Not that I'm anti-bureaucrats, Mark, at all, but they have their role to play. But clearly, there's a great opportunity for people to create a lot of complexity. And what I'm finding in discussions over the last 2 days is I've been working with clients to get through this vaccination status thing, have those discussions that business owners need to have with their staff around, no, I'm not asking you whether you're vaccinated or not, but hey, just understand I have obligations here under the Health and Safety Employment Act, the Employment Relations Act, the Privacy Act, the Bill of Rights Act, and the Human Rights Act as a director and owner of this business to manage my responsibilities to everybody. And what we're finding now is, of course, there's a lot of ambiguity, if you like, around that. Just a quick bit of feedback via chat or what have you. I certainly have found right since March 2020 last year, when I kind of lost 75% of my income overnight, ended up working 18 hours a day for clients that couldn't afford to pay me, etc., that it created, quite a bit of tension in me. I guess that shared by a lot of people. Fair comment? Okay, so let's just background this in terms of like what's actually happening on here. I'm not a psychotherapist or psychologist, but I understand that there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, pronounced up there, amygdala, which manages the very, very deep subconscious response in a part of our brain around the fight, flight, freeze response. Everybody familiar with that? You've got some who comes out, out of the dark as you're leaving the nightclub at 12 o'clock at night, and he's about 10 foot tall and he's carrying a rifle or a club of some sort. There's going to be a response to that. And our brains automatically go into this fight, flight, freeze type response scenario. When you have this Vuca environment, if you like, this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, then easy, if you like, to go straight back to that that response, if you like, that subconscious deep response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So that's just a part of who we are. It's a deep evolutionary part of our brain. It's deep wired down there, and we need to at least recognise that that's possibly the state that we're in at the moment when a lot of these situations present itself. I'm just going to come back to that one I just flicked through very quickly, but just in terms of understanding the key parts of the brain, which I think we should also have an understanding of. The amygdala, as I've described, is part of the reptilian brain, is part of the deep response. However, because we're all essentially wired negative at birth, the most humans in the human condition are introvert, and they're also mostly born wired negative, if you like, partly towards that deep subconscious response. Then we also have feelings of anxiety and worry, if you like. So we're going to be talking about, if you like, the worry solution here. So putting this slide back into perspective, let's just take a bit of a breath and say, okay, in reality, how are we feeling at the moment and what's the reason for that? This slide, which I've chucked up now, indicates that if we're living below that that orange line in the resilient phase, if you like, we could be feeling overwhelmed, we could be feeling exhausted, reactive in what we do. And while as a high functioning human being, we're resilient, we're certainly not working in the top quadrant of that. We're not particularly focused and mindful. We're certainly not in that hugely positive space around being inspired. And it'd be fair to say that we're not particularly fulfilled at the moment. That's the reality. I personally have felt all of these emotions, if you like, at times over the last, what are we talking about, 18 months, I suppose, since March 2020. What we'd like to do, obviously, through this process of moving through the traffic light system from the red position, which we're in at the moment, if you like, through that kind of orange phase. And hey, here in the Waikato, we're in orange, wahoo. It doesn't take away any of those sorts of feelings we got at the moment. But what I'd like to do is just share a couple of tools, if you like, with you as we work through, if you like, to refocusing on our lives, feeling inspired and positive, and then obviously getting the fulfillment we all, we all seek. So let's appreciate that it's how we deal with these responses, if you like, and what Dr. Martin Lossman refers to as the worry solution is what we need to do in terms of much as of what we can control, but mostly about putting ourselves back into a conscious position rather than just reacting to the amygdala fight, flight, freeze response. Move back into a space where we can actually be conscious, if you like, acknowledge the reality of the situation, and then move into a problem-solving phase, if you like. So how do we deal with cognitive and emotional overload? Just one of the things that's really transformed here, and I don't know where anybody's at with the mindfulness journey. It's something which I really struggle with, but one of the key things I've overcome is understanding when I sit down early in the morning or at night, if I'm moving from one phase of the day into the other, and close my eyes, I've acknowledged there's lots of thoughts come into my head, millions of them. The numbers are absolutely amazing. You will all be aware of that. That in the end, you're trying to move back into a state of relaxation or move into the meditative state, and yet there's all this busyness and clutter going on around in your mind. What we need to understand is that that's okay, obviously, but we also need to acknowledge that not all thoughts are fact. So because we were reacting to the subconscious, the amygdala phrase, if you like, a lot of the thoughts we have are in fact irrational. Would everybody relate to that? Okay, fair enough. So this is the first of the little tools, if you like, that Maya shared with me and that I'll share with you today. And you may, and I'm happy to share slides around if you like, and you might even like to print that one off and just say, hey, when I'm in this phase of overload, or I'm feeling, particularly vulnerable at that sort of stage, part of the re-engagement of the consciousness is to run this little formula through. I'm a visual person. In fact, we're all visual. The human thinks in pictures. So I have a little process sometimes if I'm trying to clear, I can actually attack a particular situation. I go through this little series of questions in my mind. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? And then, of course, in terms of dealing with that, once I've thought to my mind, well, that's crazy. It's just a fear-based response. There's no evidence, in fact, if you like, to support that. Then I engage with, hey, how do I feel about that? What would things be like if we didn't hold this particular belief? So a little tool there that can actually help you if you're into that overload phase and there's lots of thoughts going around and there's some dominant thoughts, then stick them into the question sheet, if you like, here, and that will help you to engage with the reality of it. One other key point to note here, the human brain's an amazing instrument, an amazing computer. And I like the way that Maya put this up there, if you like. I have lots and lots of tabs open. Some of them are just in this total stage of freeze. And in the background, I can hear lots of other things going on. I know the music's out there somewhere, but I'm not sure where it's coming from. So have an awareness that, as a computer, it's a pretty powerful one. It's useful understanding this. Getting control of those thoughts that matter, of course, is where we're going to go to. I also love this thing in terms of the mindfulness journey, in terms of saying, hey, the reality state is something like on the left there. My mind is full, but it's certainly not mindful. Okay. Right at this stage, first little exercise, and I'll give everybody 30 seconds to do that. Depending on your environment, it looks like a lot of you are at home or in an office. Would you just consciously close your eyes for a few seconds and see if you can eliminate any artificial sound? Radio, kids are not artificial, but obviously closing the door, possibly opening the window if you're in a really quiet space. But just take a few seconds, if you like, to try and eliminate all that stuff on the left where it's a physical imposition into your office. Take 30 seconds and do that now, please. I'll have a glass of water. once you've done that and got back and sit down again, just close your eyes for a few seconds and see if you can actually hear bird song. Or God forbid, if you're close to a river, whether you can hear running water. It helps very much if you can close your eyes to do that. Another phrase that's often used with clients is, are we here running a busyness or are we here running a business? Am I mindful or not? Am I sitting with a whole lot of crazy thoughts on my mind, some of them not supported by fact, etc., etc., etc. Is my mind full or am I in a mindful phase? So bearing that in mind, and hopefully you've eliminated that some of the sort of stuff, you need to open your eyes again at the moment and have a look at that big red icon on the screen, which says stop, take a breath, observe and proceed. Similar sort of process, except we're not embattled to the OODA loop. So between stimulus, what you're feeling, if you like, and what's around you, whether it's a P&L that shows a really, really difficult trading month in November or October, if you finish that part of that part of where you're at in processing your month end, between that stimulus and response, there is a space. What we're trying to do here in terms of practical tools now is actually introduce a process. I have this this icon, if you like, or my version, if you like, printed out in front of me. It's not running in front of my eyes, but if I get it, if I'm in that particular stage, then by receiving that visual stimulus around the stop, take a breath, observe and proceed, says that I'm shifting my mind from that automatic subconscious response into a conscious one. Are you relating that particularly to Melanie, or is there some outside influence causing you to smile?
I said there was bird song in the chat because I actually opened the window and I can hear the birds. Kaz said she opened the window and she can hear the wind blowing. And Mark just put he could hear a rooster crowing.
Mark, and I'm in the middle of the city, by the way.
Interesting. Cool. So cool. I'm not sure, Mark, that you perhaps there's something else needs to happen to clear some of this tension out of you, but we'll leave you to work that out. The point is that shifting that busyness, shifting that clutter, if you like, in your mind, if you like, and engaging with those sounds of nature, running water, birds, whatever it might be, if you like, is hugely powerful. Together with the, hey, let's just stop here a minute, take a breath, observe and proceed. And what we're doing here is engaging the conscious mind. I'll make a note of that tool. This thing is so important. A little side story here. My mother had a whole lot of very difficult conditions in the 10 years or so that led to her passing. But as her lungs, she had a condition called bronchiectasis and some other, if you like, some breathing complications around that. And I was first introduced to the concept of breathing and how important it is back with my mum, who actually I took along to a physiotherapy session, and we actually learned, if you like, how to breathe properly. If simply you put your hand on your chest and you can feel your chest rising, then you're probably not breathing correctly. It's particularly easy to do when you lie down. You should see your stomach rising, i.e. that your diaphragm breathing rather than breathing through your chest. The reality is to fully inflate your lungs, you need to breathe through the diaphragm. There is a little a breathing exercise here shortly, but if you put that thought in your mind in terms of that, there's some stats down there which are scientifically proven. A deep abdominal breath will shift your heart rate back to 15 points and also physically lower your blood pressure. So if you have a chance to follow the New Zealand diver, Truebridge, if you like, that holds the world record for going down unassisted to a depth, 114 meters, I think it is. The whole process around him managing his heart rate, his mental state, his BP through that process, is hugely important. It absolutely works. If you have a few minutes over the Christmas New Year period to actually investigate breathing and see how you're breathing yourself, this will be you'll be more, if you like, conscious of this. essentially right now, just once again, I'm going to get you to close your eyes and just take 3 deep breaths. The box breathing exercise, which is just one way of doing it, if you like, requires you to exhale fully, to pause, to inhale fully, and then to pause again before you go through the process again. Please close your eyes, take 2 to 3 seconds and completely dump every bit of breath out of your body, consciously through your mouth. Pause for 2 to 3 seconds. Now inhale deeply. I want you to take 5 seconds to do this. Pause. 2, 3, and now physically exhale. Right through the process. Open your eyes. Make a note to oneself that tonight at the end of the day, with the lights off and the TV off, with you being open to nature, just repeat that process 3 times. I suggest your sleep tonight will be appreciably better as a result of that. Tool number 3. Locus control. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. For those of you that practice mindfulness, you will know what I'm referring to here. The process is about returning to self and returning to consciousness. This slide at the moment, if you like, is a very interesting exercise in terms of taking a current reality check about where you are at the moment. Who do I want to be? The reality is that many of us at this particular point in time are sitting in the second blue circle from the left. I know myself, sometimes I'm just getting really short with people really quickly. I'm quite a powerful person in terms of my sister who's now passed, who could recognize when I come into an environment that was in a black space or a green space, would physically recoil. I was shifting my anxiety, my fears, my anger, whatever it might have been, to here. I was living in the fear zone. How many discussions you've had with people lately, if you like, where they just want to blame somebody, if you like, for their current scenario? This is the reality we're all sitting in. The motivation tends to be about the fight, flight, or freeze response. Is there a roof on my head? Is the money in the bank? Will I be able to put food on the table? And overall, it's laid by this anxiety that we're all feeling. We need to move from the fear zone to the growth zone, where the discussions, the activities are more focused on learning how to look after myself, to let go of what I can't. The serenity prayer comes every day. Understand the difference between what I can influence and what I can't. Let it go and be happy that there's not everything in my life I can influence. Once I've done that, I become aware of the situation. And then as I engage my conscious mind, I can begin to put together practical solutions from the conscious mind rather than reacting to the subconscious one. And those things practically manifest in what I consume, a recognition that I'm not a perfect person, but that I'm doing the best I can. And more importantly, I can identify my emotions. And then once we've been through that process, moving to a space of happiness, where the message I give out consciously and subconsciously is one of hope, that I allocate part of my day every day to practicing patience, quietude, that I'm living in the present and not focused on the future, that I'm kind to myself, that I'm adaptable to change, share my talents with others, and I think it appreciates others. So moving from where I might be at the moment, understanding that I'm living my life in a fearful way, to learning to identify that and working on the practices around that, and then moving into the growth zone, which is where we all want to be, much better space to be in. Tool number 5, and I use this all the time. A lot of you will be aware of the quadrant exercise about, employee to contractor to business owner to entrepreneur in terms of having real freedom in your life. This is simply a sorting exercise, which I'm more than happy for you to use. I encourage all of my clients, once I've developed an initial relationship with them, to look at a series of what they do in a day. Not too much around the private stuff, the sleep, the private portions of theirs, but what they do in a business day. And many, many occasions I find out that list is more than 30 items long. What I then ask them to do is to identify 3 only of those activities which directly adds value to their business. My big one, and the largest business I had, we used to write over 1,000 checks a month before, and showing my age here if you like, before we went into the sort of modern environment. But effectively, I was just not prepared to give away access to my bank account. So I would spend 4 to 5 hours not only approving invoices and then writing checks at the end of the month. Big learning for me was to say, actually, I can pay somebody much more competent than, without losing up the control around that process. I don't have to sign checks anymore. So for me, that was a process, if you like, which took quite a bit of my time once a month, which added absolutely no business at all. So the business owner is asked to identify 3 key things which adds value to the business. Think about, and I'm going off the track a little bit, think about the 80-20, the Pareto principle, which I'm sure as business owners you're all involved with. What's the 20% of activity that adds 80% of value to your business? Identify the top 3 clients of your business, not by volume, but by what margin they add to your business. And then design a specific activity around making sure those clients stay in your business. For example, would you all agree that's one way to add tremendous value to your business? Going to your 3 key clients once a month and chatting them a cup of coffee, or listening to their problems, or whatever it might be, and therefore turning that client into a lifetime value client, I would suggest to you all as business owners, is probably one of the most valuable things you can do. We then ask those business owners to get rid of the other 27 items, subcontract them, give them to staff, eliminate them, change the SOP, which says, actually, there's no point in signing checks. I'll put, a modern accounting system into my business, or whatever it might be. That same principle applies to the blue, green, yellow, purple guideline that's in front of you. Take a minute when you feel an overwhelm and just simply take all of those things that's going around in your head and mind dump them onto this piece of paper. Then obviously clearly work out what's urgent and important and what's not urgent and important, and take the 2 bottom things and apply the same process. Just get rid of them. If any of you work with a list every day, I'm a great list person, right? I like to do that. And I like to, my mind, I feel like what's important. What I do with that list, I then shift it into this quadrant and I get rid of it. So you're onto this. In the end, get rid of those 27 items. And the main reason is not the fact that you think you're really good because you got through 5 or 6 of them today. The point is you won't get through the rest. And at the end of the day, the mind comes back, your own self, your subconscious, powerful mind comes back and beats you up about the 25 you haven't done. It never gives you credit for the 5 you've done. How much more powerful is it to write 5 down, make sure they fit that 80-20 Pareto principle, and put a tick alongside each one of them? I used to have great glory in ripping the list in half, the bottom 25, and burning it, physically putting a match to it, and then sticking those 5 items on the top of my screen or wherever was top of mind at that particular point. This is a great tool for actually getting out of that overwhelm phase. Mark, it works for you? Absolutely. This is just one example. I would probably wanted to include this slide, okay, because this was one of my major issues as a young person coming into the business life and so on, running my life. I have a huge amount of energy, much as I used to have, but I was just amazing at getting lots and lots of things done. Most of them had no value at all, as I've just described, but I would get shitloads of stuff done, excuse the phrase. Unfortunately, it took me a long, long time to deal with this underlying deep conditioning around the fact that I was raised by an alcoholic, workaholic father. I was raised on the premise that in order to succeed in life, you just had to do lots and lots of hours. The old paradigm that time equals money. What a crock of poo. Most of us, particularly us Gen X business owners or people that come from that period of time where in order to be successful life, you just had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, have 5 jobs, go to bed, crashed, but fitting, you'd achieved a lot of things. the old principles, if you like, around time management and so on and so forth. It's just an absolute joke. Can't manage time. Time is a constant. Alongside your core values and belief systems, time is an absolute constant, 24 hours every day. What you can manage is not that time, but you can manage what you do with it. Now, in order to get to grips with those sorts of things, you have to deal with that conditioning. So this slide is about saying what I thought may be reductive, which is hard work, lots of time, etc., etc. And as you're putting that to one side, acknowledging that that doesn't work, but then substituting that time. So it was a 14-hour workday, bring it back to 8, take the other 6 hours if you like, and spend them doing these things here: exercising, eating healthy, sleeping well, taking time off, and bringing that whole equation back into line. This is such a battle, and it's been such a battle in my life in terms of just allowing myself to finish work at 4 o'clock or whatever, or only work 4 days a week, and then take that next 3 hours doing the things I love to do, whether it's growing vegetables or going for a run or a cycle ride or giving my partner a massage or receiving one, whatever it might be, that I had to shift the focus back to what actually nourishes you. It's a key reason why the big names in this world we know succeed, the Microsoft owner and the Richard Bransons and the people like that. And it's called retreat. So if you study any of those people, if you like, and what they do with their life, periodically, normally for 3 months of the year, they go off grid. They simply go to the back of the Canadian Rockies or whatever it is, off grid, and they just think. And the first 2.5 months, if you like, is effectively just clearing their minds, and then all of a sudden the ideas start to come. So successful businesses often have staff who say, oh, thank the good Lord that ratbag director's going away for 2 or 3 months. We can just get on and run the business like we're all capable of doing. And then the fear starts to build when they know that person is going to come back with a bucket load of ideas about how they're going to, change the world and change their business. But that's the juice. In order to do that, they need to get this part of their life correct. So for any of you who sit back and are looking at dealing with some of those deep conditionings, really useful thing to do. This is probably the most important 3 weeks in the whole presentation. You are not without flaws, but you're still awesome. So let's start referring to ourselves as being flawsome. Not flawed. We're not perfect, so we're not awesome, if you like. So I love that particular phrase from Maya, and I have it printed on the wall in terms of saying, actually, I'm an okay person. Yep, I cock up all day, every day, etc., 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 and I do stuff which I shouldn't do, and I keep going back to my old habits, etc., etc., etc. But actually, I'm not a bad person. I'm doing the best I can do with what I've got at this point in time. I think it's really important to reinforce that. Last slide here, which I think is really, really relevant, is obviously, how do you eat 100 McDonald's burgers, one at a time? How do you get to the top of that mountain, which is your full mindful life? The earlier slide around putting things in little boxes and then working out what was really most important is cool. But when you start attacking your mountain, whatever it is, then please follow the process on the left, break it down into bite-sized chunks instead of never getting to the first rung, if you like. Much better to get it to a lower rung, and be 5 or 10 steps up that 100-step ladder at the end of a period of time, then still be sitting at the bottom, trying to work out how to get to the top of the mountain without actually even getting off the bottom rung. That's just the reality of the way things are. I will send this out to you, if you like, in terms of Maya and introducing you to her with her permission, and give you the guidelines through that. So that's my quick presentation. Hope there was some value in that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Malcolm. Definitely, hopefully there's some calmer people in the room after that. Definitely some valuable tools, especially with everything else going on. And if you don't sleep well tonight, well, then have a chat to Malcolm.
Not after 9 o'clock, please. I have this rule in the house that 9 o'clock's if anybody rings after 9 o'clock, there's an emergency, somebody's died. So not sleeping is not good enough. But yeah, otherwise just come back to me directly if you like, and I'm happy to share those slides or you know, talk about some pragmatic tools if you like that you might like to use in your own situation.
Did anyone have any questions?
No, but excellent. Thank you, Malcolm. That was really cool. Seeing some of those points. Some of them we tend to know. And yeah, excellent. Thank you, Malcolm. You know, some of those points are new, and some of them we know and need to be refreshed on. I really enjoyed that.
Cool. Thank you, Sharon. I follow the KISS principle. Keep it simple, Simon, in terms of that. But find one of those things that particularly works for you that you need to be, you know, reinforced, if you like, print it off and put it somewhere, you know, close to you, just so that you can actually begin that exercise. I didn't share with you guys, and I was going to take you through this exercise, but my first or a second business coach, I think a guy called Tom Poland, who's hugely successful, when we wrote our contract, which was in my case, I wrote a contract with my wife at the time and Tom, that from midnight on a Saturday night to midnight on a Sunday night, in fact it was 6 a.m. on Monday morning, I had to hand my mobile phone into her. I had to tell her what I was going to do for the next 24 hours. Yeah, and typically if it involves something that she benefited from, it's great, but it had to be something that caused me to relax. Huge thing. The other thing which I was going to share with you and take you to the closed eyes, I have a particular process to deal with those. I close my eyes. I take 3 deep breaths. I count to 8. And then I use this phrase. That's interesting. I was just about to punch that guy. Actually, it was typically the first one that happened to me. I got a really, really shitty trading result one month. Business was turning over about 8 to 10 million, and I lost 55 grand, I think it was, in that month. I just went into panic mode. So my phrase in that month was, that's interesting. I just got really anxious about that trading result. I immediately felt calmer. So whatever it is that works for you in terms of that little routine, it's really good. Understand the other thing that Tom identified to me too is, if you looked at the size and the power of the subconscious mind, imagine putting the pin head of a needle, not the, sorry, the pointy end, if you like, of a needle, if you like, on the biggest surface you can find. And that's the size relative between the subconscious mind, which is the record of every human experience you've had. It's all there. We don't forget that stuff, we just can't recall it. But the key thing to me is that the relationship between the pinhead, if you like, and the size of the subconscious mind, the earth, if you like, the whole surface of the earth, is the biggest physical thing I can think of, shows you just how powerful the subconscious mind is, and how you go straight back to that fear, you know, experience. Something which is quite private, I'm happy to share with you guys. Every time I heard my dad speak, I went into my subconscious mind, and it wasn't a good space. It's all there. So in the end, the process of closing your eyes, taking 3 deep breaths and counting to 8 simply re-engages your conscious mind. But Dad's been dead for 7 years.
Cool. Thanks, Malcolm, for sharing.
I just
go ahead, Melanie.
Sorry, I just wanted to say how perfectly timed your talk was to us today, Malcolm. And I think that so many of our members and so many businesses have definitely felt overwhelmed in the last 18 months. And I think a lot of people are probably really struggling to actually work through the processes. And I think what you've done has put things in a very simple and very succinct and very clear manner. And I'm just going to highlight one, that the circle that you put with hard work. And I think so many of us on this today can relate. We were brought up thinking you just had to work harder. And the fact that we actually have to look after ourselves and do the exercise and eat healthy and sleep your timing is perfect, so I can't thank you enough. It's been hugely valuable.
I'll add to that actually, Malcolm, because I wasn't expecting what we got today, to be honest with you. But Melanie will know that a couple of years ago I got into such a state, and I'm asthmatic, and we decided to move to a rural block that's full of tea tree and pollen and lots of other stuff. But you know, we really wanted to live in the country. But I got into such a state that I couldn't breathe. Simply couldn't breathe, and I got very stressed and quite unwell, and I ended up having to see a breathing specialist and having tests and all sorts of stuff. And there was actually nothing wrong with me apart from the fact I was asthmatic. But for people who are asthmatic, or if you are struggling to breathe or you're really stressed, it's quite frightening, and particularly when it happens in the middle of the night or things like that when everyone else is asleep. And all of the stuff you put on here, I was shown and re-shown and re-shown. And over the last 2 years, I've worked very hard to make sure that I don't get myself into those situations. I've watched a lot of people in Auckland, and Garth knows some people that I'm talking about, stressed beyond belief, that have finally opened their businesses today, that already have, some of them have mental health issues apart from anything else. And it's been really tough watching them. But I really wasn't expecting that, and I agree with Melanie. It's a really good time to share that, and I think that it's a poignant thing that, and I agree with Melanie. I used to be the person that thought I needed to work harder than everyone else. Now I need to work smarter than everyone else. And when people say, "What do I do all day?" I just look at them. It's because it's not important what I do; it's important what happens. But yeah, thank you for that very good presentation. I do have to go because I've got a meeting, but thank you very much.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Malcolm. This one would be really good to share around all the groups. There's a lot of people out there in a lot of the groups that would have got a lot of benefit from hearing your presentation today. And personally, it was good to be reminded to take a breath. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, look, Melanie, more than happy to do that. You know, if groups do have particular interest. But, yeah, and I think if your feedback, it's great. You know, we're all, you know, we're all successful, capable, high-performing people, but at the bottom, we're just human beings, and we are flawed and awesome, of course, and we're all leaders. So, yeah, I was going to share another thing with you, if you like, which really is interesting stats about Zero, but might do that, talk to you about that separately, Melanie, just in what's going on there economically, what we expect to happen in the next 6 months. Because on the one hand, the negative side of me, because I work with Kim Thompson, my CAs, who's an insolvency specialist, and they're just, you know, scared out of their boots about the flood that's coming, if you like. But the other interesting thing is there's been some really interesting stats done by Zero worldwide around what's actually happening in the various responses. And it actually puts, you know, put aside your political views, if you like, and your views on bureaucrats and so on and so forth. It's actually quite positive, if you like, from New Zealand's perspective. So the other key thing that one of our directors might point made, a lot of us as people here in advisory roles, I think of people like Sharon and so on, we have a particularly important part to play, you know, over the next period of time. And I think in all cases, Sharon, I certainly with my clients directly in the influencers I deal with, I'm saying, actually, can we actually just kind of close our eyes and take a breath here, like physically? Can we say a karakia, for goodness sake? Can we actually, you know, get out of our professional way and say, you just need to do this, you just need to do that. So actually, you know, we're all still alive. And we just need to relax before we actually get on and do the, you know, the bulky stuff around it. So
I think it would be fair to say that there's actually 6 of us left. So we could either turn the recording off or not, Dan, your call. But we could probably just have a conversation now, because we all know each other reasonably well. We all know what each other does. We've all met numerous times. So I think it would be hugely valuable just to carry on that conversation, Malcolm.
Okay. So just going back to the point I made about sharing with other people, Melanie, you and I can do if you like, or I think it needs to be spoken to rather than just having the slides prepared, because if I was doing it at the group, I'd actually kind of sit down a bit, would actually take people through the exercise that Tom taught me, because it is amazingly powerful. Breathing is so underrated, you know, in terms of the ability to do that. So that's the first comment. I'm happy to do that. in terms of economic reality, and I might share this, I'll need to get Rob Dory's perspectives, one of our directors, if you like, because there's a little bit of other stuff in there, but I think it could be quite useful too in terms of saying to people, actually, this is what it looks like. So Xero, while they're not the largest provider of this, of the software, we're all pretty familiar with it, and the depth of information, the correlation between the COVID response and where the economy's at is very interesting. And although Xero is not that big in the States, it's pretty big in Australia, pretty big in UK and in other areas. So the data is really, really good. And that presentation shows the difference between UK, Australia, and New Zealand and what's happened to GDP essentially. But there's a couple of other interesting comments on it. So that's a good point in terms of where the discussion might go. The third thing is, Sharon and I would really appreciate your feedback on this, okay? So you're seeing, and not you personally, but you guys in the group as a group that needs to stand up at the moment and deal with the IRDs, with those people that are going to change their views, because the IRDs definitely, from my understanding, move from a space of, well, let's just wait and see what happens. They've been told to back up by the government to a point where they're going to be probably at 300 times the liquidated process if they're going to follow with people where they see the case is just simply hopeless, right? And so the balance are not, you'll give the tax advice, you'll give the way for those people to deal with the IRD and get rid of some of that stuff, right? Which might include selling their house and starting again, all right, whatever it is. But prior to that, I think the really important thing from people like you, Sharon, to say is just before we can do that, can we understand that under Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we still have a roof over our head. There's food in the fridge. Nobody's died, well, died with COVID, if you like. But in the end, if you're working with people that are across the desk in front of you, you say, actually, just put this into perspective. It's just a business. Yep, it may fail. And if it's beyond recovery, let's go through that process and start again. Because once you do that, a big weight comes off your shoulders. So I think, the accountants, the business advisors, mortgage brokers, or that whole group of people that sit in the advisory space have got a really important role to play here, but not come on too heavy with the whole, okay, plan A, yeah, we'll get through this, we can negotiate an arrangement with the IRD, as opposed to saying the first thing to do is actually just to recognise that as a country and as an economy, we're actually doing okay. It's not great in some areas, obviously. But, from your perspective, Sharon, give me some feedback on that. I think that has to be part of the conversation, the first part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think, look, some businesses have been quite good at adapting, but I think Auckland's long lockdown has, it's definitely been a death knell for some, to be fair. They're just, a lot of it was about where they were in their business. I've got one that's failed because it just started at the wrong time and they needed a lot of money and they needed quick traction, and they've just in the last 18 months been unable to do it. I think the bigger their overhead costs, often the worse their situation. It is, you do often get off the phone and think they sounded together, but the things they're dealing with cannot possibly mean that this person gets off the phone and functions at their best. And I was actually talking to another TNG member about a mutual client, and the observation he made in relation to liquidations and insolvencies, and this is the pathway this guy's gone, was the risk is he's talked to enough people to find the person that is telling him what he wants to hear. And I think that's actually really a mindful point to make as we talk with clients and colleagues that are struggling. You are right. At the end of the day, within their nuclear family, no one's died. It is, yes, it's a mortgage that they might walk away from the business with and nothing to show, but they actually still need to make quite astute decisions, and they need to listen to the real options for their business, not the one they want to hear. So there's a balance to it, definitely. And there are times with some of those business owners where we are just stepping back for a moment because we can tell mentally and emotionally we can't hammer them again right now. We can't try and get them to deal with a query or talk about the IRD situation.
Yeah.
What they found with the Canterbury earthquakes was that IRD were really good for a while, and then they started to really get quite tough. And an expression that a Inland Revenue inspector made to me in relation to a somewhat troublesome taxpayer was that they would, if they were moving to PAYE, they would no longer be a threat to the tax base. So Inland Revenue look at some of those clients with a lot of overdue debt and they go, do they have the ability to pull themselves out of it, or are we going to continue to be their bank? Are they not going to pay their PAYE, not going to pay their GST, and not going to pay their tax? And if that's the situation and they've got no way to get out of this, we need to stop funding their business. And often in the clients that you find that are really in difficulty, they just are not paying any of that stuff and they're not attempting to. But actually it's a part of doing business. So there's some interesting conversations going to be had with clients going forward.
I think I agree with all of that, and you're so right in many ways. The point is, and I'll just make 2 points. I think as an advisor to those people, you have to keep communicating, right? Because we just go into this whole denial thing, right? And in the end, it's going to come back and bite them. That's the first thing. But the second point is, it won't be about the resolution. It'll just be about the kind of, are you okay? Okay. And once you've had that initial discussion, and okay, you're not a psychologist like I'm not, okay, and if you feel those people need help, and often people just withdraw, that's a big sign. But if you don't communicate, then it's just going to go into a downward spiral. If you do communicate, it's in 2 parts. One, are you okay? But then move them back into that conscious mindset I've talked about. Okay, you know, so let's actually go through and use some of those tools. Let's actually put all the things that are going on in your mind, you know, sort them into the top 3 or 4, and then say, okay, are we engaged there? Well, I'm still feeling really, okay, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, count to 8, and tell me what it is you're feeling. It's an amazingly powerful tool. And say, hey, and they say, oh, cool, I feel much better about that. Let's go into it. Say, no, let's talk in a week's time. We'll go through the same exercise. In the meantime, we'll both engage, if you like, to a situation, to a resolution. It could well be in the end that, you know, then able to, no, this is the point I love that you've made, they're able to move into a conscious, sensible decision.
Yeah.
Take the fear out of it, okay? And if that's a pragmatic decision, yep, there's no chance here, we need to have that sort of different sort of discussion, but it means we'll keep the house, or we, you know, whatever that might be, that decision's going to be better. I think that's the point you made, isn't it? People just need to slow down a bit, make good decisions. However, they can't do that if they're in that fight, flight, or fright, you know, free stage. They need to move back into the conscious mind.
Interesting.
So I guess that's the point about you being an advisor. But I think your responsibility is not just on tax or the ID arrangements. You know, it's about saying, actually, I'm an advisor. I'm a trusted advisor. A lot of us don't actually fully appreciate the responsibility around that. And I say to people, I'm not a psychologist or therapist, okay, but I'm really feeling anxious about this. You know, is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Great point, so.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Malcolm. There's definitely lots of thought that can be thunk in that space. And yeah, by all means, please do get in contact with Malcolm if you'd like to continue that conversation as well. Like mental health and everything, it's just so important and more prevalent as ever, especially with December being a busy last surge for the end of the year. So do wish you guys all well with the last little bit of 2021, and hope 2022 is an improvement all around. So thanks everyone. What we'll do is just quickly wrap around the room. There's only 6 of us left on the call, which is a nice cozy group, and most of us will know each other already. But just quickly introduce yourself, what you do, and then we will wrap up for another fortnight. So we've heard lots from Malcolm, who is a business coach. What we'll do is we'll go around the room. Sharon, let's start with you.
So obviously from the conversation so far, I'm an accountant, SJK accountant, based in Auckland, staff working more and more remotely. I've got one moving to Tauranga next year. And just kind of we work with clients that we want to get them up and running with good business practices at the beginning. We want to try and keep them on track with their business so that they don't get into too big a mess. And we like to just answer their questions when they've got them. I'm constantly getting questions through my emails or phone calls from clients, just bouncing things off. That's the sort of space we like to work in, rather than just the old expression is, here's my shoebox of information for my annual accounts. Please give me my annual accounts and tax return. That's me, Sharon Cowie, SJK Accountants.
Thanks, Sharon. Kaz.
Everybody, Kaz from Port's Perfect Dog Training, your local dog trainer in North Albany. Pleased today to be letting you know that your copy of Shorelines, with my little article in there on beach etiquette, will be available today. I'm looking forward to getting my first published article in my hot little hands later today. So I'm very proud of that. Throwing myself outside my comfort zone and doing things you wouldn't normally do because of this lockdown, trying to put myself in a positive growth mindset, as you alluded to, Malcolm, because not being able to work during lockdown was could very easily turned you into a screaming Mimi underneath the desk. So looked for something to do. Also very pleased that we can now get out and work. So my colleague and I have joined forces, and we're running a series of workshops this Saturday, next Saturday, Monday, Wednesday and Thursday evenings. We'll in 3 different locations, Auckland's North Shore, at my property in North Albany, in Pets in the City in Silverdale, and also in Central Park at Parnell. So a couple of different locations. All the details are on my website. And if you just feel like doing some really fun shopping, come and visit us at the markets in Long Bay this Sunday or Sunday the 19th to get your puppy Christmas presents. That's me. Hopefully that will wind me up for the year with a little bit of Christmas spending money, so I can then share the love to somebody else's business. So that's Kaz, Port's Perfect Dog Training, learning games for life.
Thanks, Kaz. Right, Garth.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. Awesome presentation. I jokingly said when I closed my eyes that I could hear my wife putting away the groceries, but I'm absolutely blessed where I live. The other day I was sitting out having a cup of coffee in the back, and a mother duck with 8 ducklings came up and just came around my feet, and we fed them some oats and some peas and gave them some water, and guess what? They came back a couple of days later. It's just those times that you can take to just be aware of all the wonderful things that we have around us, and life is not all full of stress as long as we take time to find the other things. Awesome presentation. Thank you. Garth Partridge, National Groups Manager for the Networking Group, and I've been having so much fun zooming around the country and entering people's TNG meetings and hearing a lot of positive things about how the TNG networking supports help people through this pretty tough time. Look forward to 2022. Catch you all then.
Thanks, Garth. Melanie.
Thanks, Dan. So the networking group is committed to helping our members to grow their businesses. And we wanted to make it really well known today that we have no judgment. We won't be asking anybody for their beliefs, nor their religions, nor nothing like that. So wherever our members are at, we are here to help them with their businesses. In the new year, what that means for us is changing the way we do things, providing some online groups, providing venues that don't mandate certain requirements, and continuing to help our members. So please let all of your group members know if they have a problem to come through to us. We will find them a way to continue their business networking so that we can continue to help everybody. without judgment. We've got new groups opening around the country, and we're really excited about the future for 2022. And we thank all our members for their support through what's been a really tough year this year. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Melanie. So yeah, and then there's me, Dan. So we do Ingot Digital Design, which is websites, communication in that online space. So helping businesses better communicate what they do, and then turning the website into a beautiful tool as well that is effective and can actually help convert their customers to do what it is that they want them to do: buy, sell, join, become a member, spend lots of millions of dollars with you instead of your competition down the road. So that's the space we love to work in, and with websites and the beautiful creative design around that as well. But as Melanie mentioned, TNG Online Connect, it's definitely all about helping you connect with people outside of your network, and then providing the advice and education on top of what you're getting with your TNG membership already. So once again, thank you so much, Malcolm, for sharing today. Definitely some personal stuff, and there's always some journeys that we are going through. So really interesting to hear, and we will be back. I don't know. Yeah, I think there's one more session, Melanie. That's it for the year. So we will be back into the new year, and we will update you on when the next session is going to be. But otherwise, look forward to the next time we meet, and have a wonderful weekend to you all.
The next session is actually the 11th of February, Dan.
Awesome.
And I'm really excited to have already scheduled 3 months of speakers. They're TNG members who have got great messages for us, educational, inspirational, and motivational. So really look forward to seeing everyone next year.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Awesome. Thank you.